students. Today I am going to teach you Unit 3.2 The Night I Met Einstein. Before starting the unit, let's learn some facts about the author Jerome Waldman.
Jerome Weidman, an American playwright, 1913 to 1998. Jerome Weidman was born on 4th April 1913 in Manhattan, New York City, and moved with his family to the Bronx after finishing high school at David Clinton. His parents were Jewish immigrants, and his father, Joseph, worked in the garment trade. He also worked in the garment industry, which later provided him with book material, and attended City College of New York and New York University Law School, all the while writing stories and finally novels. In his work, he wrote about the rough underside of business and politics and daily life in New York. The Independent Obituary states, "There was precious little hope of salvation, indeed, precious little hope," in his early novels and often dazzling and highly crafted short stories, many of which inevitably found their way into Harold Ross' New Yorker during its golden age of the late 30s and early 40s. In the 1950s, he used his ability for speakable dialogue in writing for the movies, which led to working with George Abbott on the musical Fiorello in 1959. He wrote the book for the musical I Can Get It For You Wholesale, which was based on his first novel. This book was the source for a 1951 movie. His first novel, I Can Get It For You Wholesale, published in 1937 when he was 24, teamed with the life in Manhattan's Garment Center, telling about the rise of ragingly ambitious Harry Bogan. Weidman went on to publish more than 30 novels and volumes of short stories, among them The Enemy Camp, The Sound of Bow Bells, and The 4th Street East. Many were published in the magazines Story, American Mercury, and The New Yorker. He made his debut in the theater with Fiorello 1959, co-authored with George Abbott, Jerry Bock, and Sheldon Harnick, which won the Invite Drama Critics Circle Award, the Pulitzer Prize, and tied with The Sound of Music for a Tony for Best Musical on the 1959-60 season. He teamed with Abbott, Bock, and Harnick again on the musical tale Tenderloin in 1960. In 1951, his first novel became a film. Jerome Weidman was the prolific and popular novelist. This American playwright had died on 6 October 1998. His contribution to literature, theater is significant. Thank you.
Now let's start the unit. Jerome Waldman, 1913 to 1998, was an American playwright and novelist. In 1960, he wrote the Pulitzer Prize for his work, a musical drama titled Fiorello. He collaborated with George Abbott, Jerry Bock, and Sheldon Harnick for its music and lyrics. His book, I Can Get It For You Wholesale, has also been used for a movie of the same name. Now let's start the explanation. When I was a very young man, I was invited to dine at the house of a philanthropist. The author is saying that it was an incident when he was young. At the time, he was invited to dine. Here we can see that dine means have dinner. So he was invited for the dinner at the house of philanthropist, means a person who seeks to promote the welfare of others, especially by the generous donation of money to good cause. After a wonderful dinner, our hostess took us to a large drawing room. Then he says, after a good dinner, their hostess means a woman who invites guests to a social event. So the hostess took them to a large drawing room. Chairs were being arranged. I am arranging the chairs for a concert, my hostess said. We are going to listen to a very good pianist. There, the chairs were arranged, and then the hostess said she was arranging the chairs for the concert, means performance of music by players or singers. Then she said they were going to listen a very good pianist, means someone who plays the piano. So everyone else was very happy. I was not. I did not understand classical music. I thought I was tone deaf. The author says he was not happy at that time, but everyone was happy as the author did not understand the classical music. Then he said he thought he was tone deaf, means unable to hear the difference between high and low notes of music. I sat down so that I would not be impolite and waited for the concert to begin. I did not pay attention to the music after it began. Then he sat down and waited for the concert to begin, but he was not paying attention, but he sat there as he wouldn't be impolite. After a while, I heard everyone clapping, so I realized that the piece was over. Just then, I heard a gentle but firm voice saying, "You are fond of Bach?" As the author was not paying attention to music, he did not realize that it was over. And when he heard claps, he came to know that it was over. Then he heard a gentle but a firm voice saying that you are fond of Bach. Bach means, here we can see that meaning of Bach. Johann Sebastian Bach, a German organist and composer of the 17th century. I knew as much about Bach as I did about nuclear physics. I was going to say something ordinary so that I could get out of the situation. As the author studied nuclear physics, he did not know much about Bach, so he decided to say something ordinary to get out of the situation. I turned in order to look at my neighbor and I saw a very famous face. It was someone with a shock of white hair and pipe. Then he looked at the people sat beside him and he saw a very famous face with a shock of white hair and a pipe. Here is the description of that man. I know that I must tell this man the truth. He looked at me as if my answer was very important. He says that man was looking at him and as his answer was very important for him. So in that manner he was looking at him. I do not know anything about Bach, I said, and I have never heard any of this music. He looked surprised. The author told him that everything truth, and then he didn't know anything about the Bach and he had never heard any of his music notes. That the man looked surprised, and with surprise he asked the author that he had never heard him. You have never heard of Bach? He asked. In surprise, he asked him, have you never heard him? He made it sound as if I had said that I had never taken a bath. To that man's question seemed to the author like he hadn't taken a bath ever. I would like to understand music so that I could understand Bach, I said, but I'm not able to, I am tone deaf. Then the author trying to explain himself to that old man by saying that first of all he had to understand the music to understand the Bach, but he could not understand and he could not do so because he was tone deaf. He couldn't make difference between the tones of music that are high or low. The old man got up. You will come up with me? He asked. I just remained seated. I'm requesting you to come with me, he said again. Then that old man got up and asked the author to come with him. But the author didn't respond. He sat and then the old man requested the author to come with him. So I went up with him. He took me to a room which had a gramophone in it and asked, what kind of music do you like? So after that, the old man's request, the author went with that old man. And then that man took the author in a room where there was a gramophone. Gramophone means machine for playing recorded music. And then he asked the author what kind of music he liked. Well, I answered, I like songs that have words and the kind of music where I can follow the tune. Then the author replied that he liked the songs which have words and he liked the music which he could follow the tune. He smiled and nodded, obviously pleased. You can give me an example, perhaps? Then that old man smiled and nodded, means moved head up and down to indicate agreement. And he was pleased by the author's answer of song and music. And then he asked the author that give an example of any song. I told him I like anything by Bing Crosby. At once I could hear Bing Crosby's voice filling the room. Then the author replied that he liked any song from Bing Crosby, an American singer and actor. The simplest answer seemed to be to sing the lines, so I sang it back to him. Then the old man said, "Now can you please tell me what you just heard?" he said. And then the old man started gramophone and asked the author what he could hear from Bing Crosby's voice. The simplest answer seemed to be to sing the lines, so I sang it back to him. So then, obviously, the author listened the song, so he sang some lines from that song in his answer. He smiled. "You are not tone deaf," he said. Then the old man said to the author that he was not tone deaf. He could understand some of the music notes. I told him this was one of my favorite songs. Sometimes I had heard hundreds of times. So it didn't really prove anything. As that song was author's favorite song and he had heard that song hundreds of times, so he could remember the lines of that song. So that doesn't mean he was not tone deaf. "Nonsense," said Einstein. "It proves everything. Do you remember your first arithmetic lesson in school? Suppose at your very first contact with numbers, your teacher had ordered you to work out a problem in, say, long division or fraction. Could you have done it?" The old man. Who was that old man? The old man was Albert Einstein. The old man exclaimed with disagreement and said it is nonsense that, and it proves that the author was not tone deaf. And then that man gave examples of school arithmetic problems to author and said, could he solve the problems of long division or fraction at the beginning of the introduction of numbers? He asked the author about the beginning of learning of maths, learning of numbers. No, of course not. As obvious, the author said not at all. Because after learning only numbers, the person directly couldn't solve hard problems of arithmetic. Exactly, it's like learning maths. You have to learn addition and subtraction in order to do multiplication and division. Now I am playing something a little more advanced. So with satisfaction, the old man said exactly, because it was the beginning of learning maths. Then the man gave explanation that one should have to learn addition and subtraction to learn multiplication and division first. So in music, he said then he will play something little advanced music so he could understand more. It was John McCormack singing. "The trumpeters sing that back," he ordered. Then that old man played a song of John McCormack and the song was The Trumpeter. Then he told the author to sing that song back. And we went on from level to higher level until he was playing just music without words. Then one by one he played song of many levels, and after that they reached at the music where there were no words, there was only music. I was amazed that this great man was paying attention, complete attention to me, so that I could learn something new. It was as if I was the most important person in his world. Suddenly he got up and turned off the gramophone. And the author was really very surprised that the old man was doing so much. He was making efforts to make the author learn something new in the music, and he was behaving as if the author was very important person for him in this world. And suddenly he turned off the gramophone. "Now, young man," he said, "we are ready to listen to Bach." And then he said to the author that now they were ready to listen to the Bach. We went down and sat in the hall. "Just allow yourself to listen," he said. "That's all there is it to." Then both of them went to the hall where the concert was going on, and he told the author that now allow yourself to listen to that music, and there is only music. Now he was able to take interest in music. I have heard that piece many times since that day, but I am never alone. I am sitting beside a small man with a shock of untidy hair and a pipe in his mouth. After that day, the author said he listened those notes many times, and when he listened to those notes, he was not alone. The old man's memory was with him. He described that man again, that he was sitting with him with shock of untidy hair and a pipe in his mouth. He has eyes that are unusually warm. When the concert ended, I too was able to clap sincerely. Our hostess came towards us. We both stood up. Then the author said that when the concert ended, and he was describing that the man's eyes was very warm, and when the concert ended, the author clapped sincerely because at that time he was aware about the music. He wasn't tone deaf at all. And then the hostess came there and both of them stood up. I'm sorry, Dr. Einstein, she said, giving me a cold look, that you missed so much. The hostess told that old man and she was asking for apology that, and the name of that old man was Einstein. The hostess looked at the author in cold emotion. She told Dr. Einstein that he missed so much during the concert because of the author. I'm sorry too, he said. My young friend here and I, however, were engaged in the greatest activity of which a human being is capable. Then Dr. Einstein also said sorry to her and told her that he was with his friend, means he was with author, and they were busy in a great activity of which a human being is capable. She looked puzzled. Really? She said. And what is that? The hostess looked confused and she asked Dr. Einstein what was that activity. Einstein smiled and put his arm across my shoulders, opening up the frontier of beauty. Then Dr. Einstein smiled and put his arms across the author's shoulders and said, opening up the frontiers of beauty means he was helping the author to make him introduced to the beauty of music, the beauty of songs. So in our life, only book based knowledge is not important. Extra activities like games, music, etc. are very important to us, as they have a beauty, and that beauty gives us inner peace. Now with this message, we are finishing our unit.